The Galactic Council had always projected an image of grandeur and benevolence to the uninitiated. It was a shining beacon of unity across the stars, a coalition of hundreds of worlds, thousands of species, and countless voices joined in a chorus of peace. For centuries, the Council claimed to be the safeguard of civilization, the shield against chaos, and the final arbiter of justice. But humanity had only been part of this illusion for less than 50 years. When the first human colony ships breached the edges of Council space, there had been suspicion. Humanity's rise from a single, isolated world to a star-spanning people had been breathtakingly fast by galactic standards. Most species took millennia to transition from planetary power to interstellar actors. Humans had done it in mere centuries. Some council members whispered of recklessness, of dangerous ambition. Others argued humanity's adaptability was an asset the galaxy could not afford to ignore. Thus, Earth was invited, no pressure, to join. For humans, the Council represented legitimacy. Membership meant access to galactic trade routes, research exchanges, and protections under interstellar law. Humanity, still scarred by its own bloody history of wars and betrayals, chose to believe. We entered their halls of shining crystal and gold, believing in their oaths, their words, their promises. We were fools. At first, the deception was subtle. Council directives restricting human military buildup were explained away as precautions for galactic stability. Limits on resource extraction from Earth's colonies were justified as ecological protections. Every human objection was smoothed over with honeyed words. Patience, they told us. Trust the process. In time, you will have your share. But behind closed doors, the Council's calculus was different. To them, humanity was not a partner. It was a resource. Our colonies were strategically placed, rich in ores, gas, and arable worlds. Our fleets, though restrained by treaties, still contained innovations the galaxy had never seen. Our soldiers, disciplined and fearless, were coveted as mercenaries. And perhaps most dangerously of all, our ideas, our restless drive to question, innovate, and rebel, threatened the comfortable stagnation that had gripped the Council for centuries. So they plotted. It began with the Accords of Lumiere, a treaty presented as a simple expansion of Council oversight. Hidden within its labyrinthine clauses was a provision that transferred sovereignty of human colonies to joint administration. In truth, it stripped humanity of control. Colonial governors, once elected or appointed from Earth, were replaced by Council bureaucrats. Human fleets stationed nearby were ordered to disarm and reintegrate into cooperative defense initiatives. The protests were loud, but the Council was louder. They declared humanity's objections as paranoia, our resistance as aggression. Other species, lulled by centuries of Council propaganda, believed them. The humans are impatient, they said. They must learn humility before they can lead. And so humanity watched, horrified, as our own colonies slipped from our grasp. Mining stations on Vera declared allegiance not to Earth, but to the Council. Agricultural worlds like Meridius saw shipments rerouted to alien markets, while human population starved. On the frontier, alien patrols bearing Council insignia boarded human freighters at will, seizing cargo for security inspections. It was betrayal hidden in bureaucracy, conquest disguised as diplomacy. Some humans still believed negotiation was possible. The diplomats of Earth pleaded for compromise, for reason. They argued humanity's loyalty, our willingness to serve, our desire for peace. But others, soldiers, colonists, refugees, saw the truth in harsher terms. The Council would never see us as equals. They had invited us into their halls not to share power, but to contain it. Tension turned to rage when the first blood was spilled. On the colony world of Carthus III, protests against Council rule turned violent. Human miners demanded fair rations, their chants echoing through the streets. Council enforcers responded with stun rifles. When the miners refused to disperse, live ammunition was used. Hundreds lay dead by sunset. Official reports labeled it a necessary action against insurrection. Earth broadcast the images to the galaxy, the blood of innocents staining the dirt, the cries of children echoing through rubble. Humanity's voice trembled with fury as we demanded accountability. The Council's response was chilling. They censured Earth for provoking unrest and imposed stricter oversight on our media. That was the moment many realized the deception was complete. The Council had never intended to honor us. To them, our suffering was collateral, our obedience the expectation, our resistance to crime. In the great chambers of the Council, human delegates stood and shouted accusations. They recited the names of massacred civilians, displayed evidence of systemic theft, demanded justice, but their words fell on stone ears. The other races turned their gazes away, unwilling to defy the council that had ruled for millennia. And in those halls, humanity felt the cold truth settle over us like ash. We were alone but not broken. For every betrayal, there is a reckoning. For every lie, there is a truth waiting to be unleashed. The council thought humanity was naive, pliant, easy to control. They believed our need for approval would outweigh our thirst for freedom. They had forgotten one thing. Humanity's history was written in fire. From the ruins of ancient wars to the revolutions that tore empires apart, betrayal had always been our crucible. And each time, humanity had emerged sharper, harder, unyielding. In secret, whispers grew. In the darkened rooms of military bunkers, in the cargo bays of merchant fleets, in the shadows of occupied colonies, a question spread. Do we bow or do we fight? And across the stars, among every human heart still beating with fury, the answer began to form, not in treaties or negotiations, but in a single word that would one day echo across the galaxy like thunder. The massacre on Carthus III was not the last. It was only the beginning. In the months that followed, human colonies became pressure cookers, simmering with anger that boiled over in desperate uprisings. On the frontier world of Deimos Prime, farmers refused to hand over their harvest to council collectors. The response was swift, orbital bombardment of the silos. On New Horizon Station, dock workers staged a strike, blocking alien freighters. The enforcers arrived in armored exosuits, and what began as a labor protest ended with the concourses painted red. Every atrocity was justified in the same sterile language, necessary containment of human aggression. And yet, outside the council's gilded chambers, the galaxy began to whisper. They had seen rebellions before, yes, but never an entire species branded as insurgents. Never a people so quickly crushed after being promised partnership. Earth itself was muzzled. The council stationed fleets in orbit under the guise of protective oversight. Human warships were ordered to dock, disarmed under watchful alien eyes. Our admirals fumed in silence, knowing any open defiance would see Earth burned as an example. But even stripped of weapons, humanity's will could not be disarmed. Underground resistance cells spread like wildfire. From the inner colonies to the farthest mining stations, humans organized in secret. Some cells sabotaged alien patrol craft. Others smuggled weapons to civilians. Hackers broke into council datanets, broadcasting evidence of massacres across suppressed channels. Soldiers, humans forced to serve in joint peacekeeping units, began to desert, vanishing into the shadows where they pledged loyalty not to the council, but to humanity. The council, blind in its arrogance, thought these sparks could be smothered. They underestimated how quickly sparks can set a forest ablaze. The true breaking point came on Arivos, a colony long prized for its rare crystal mines. When council enforcers attempted to seize control of the mines, the miners fought back with tools, explosives, and sheer desperation. What should have been a swift crackdown turned into a bloodbath for the enforcers. For the first time, a human colony defeated a council strike force. The survivors fled, carrying back tales of humans who fought like demons, who refused to die even when cornered. That victory, small as it was, ignited a fire in every human world. If Arivos could resist, then so could they. Messages passed through hidden channels, encrypted into trade manifests, whispered by defecting soldiers. We are not broken. We are not slaves. We are not done. But with each act of resistance came harsher reprisals. Council fleets executed blockades, starving colonies. Entire populations were relocated in what the council called security measures. Families were separated, leaders executed, entire towns erased from maps. And yet, the more they tried to crush us, the more we hardened. It was then that Earth's hidden hand revealed itself. For decades, despite council restrictions, humans had quietly prepared. Black projects buried in deep bunkers, sleeper fleets hidden in asteroid fields, covert alliances with dissident alien factions. The council had assumed compliance. They had mistaken silence for submission. Now, humanity stood at the precipice. We could continue bowing, watching our colonies stripped bare, our people erased, our name turned into a curse across the stars. Or we could rise. In the underground chambers beneath Geneva Dome, the leaders of Earth met in secret. Military commanders, civilian representatives, resistance leaders, they all gathered under one banner for the first time since joining the council. Outside, alien patrol ships prowled. Inside, a decision was made that would define humanity's destiny. They spoke of the massacres, the betrayals, the colonies that cried out for liberation. They weighed the risks of open defiance. Extinction was a real possibility. But in the end, the debate circled back to the same truth. Survival without dignity was no survival at all. The vote was unanimous. One word would be spoken. One command would ripple across every encrypted channel, every resistance cell, every hidden fleet. A word simple enough for a child to understand, but heavy enough to shatter empires. And when it came, humanity would no longer beg. We would no longer plead. We would no longer wait. We would fight. The word was sent in silence. It did not thunder across the stars in grand speeches or fiery declarations. It slipped quietly encrypted into dormant comm buoys. It flashed on hidden screens in mining tunnels and bunker command posts. It pulsed in the dead air between asteroids where no patrol ship ever ventured. The word was unleash. Across the galaxy, humanity awoke. On Arivos, miners put down drills and picked up rifles cached beneath their barracks. On New Horizons Station, dock workers who had been beaten and broken days before open seal crates long thought to hold replacement parts. Inside lay railguns and combat drones. On Earth itself, deep beneath the Council's watchful fleets, bunkers came alive. Screens lit with activation codes that had been waiting decades for this moment. Sleeper agents, buried in bureaucracy and military ranks, received their orders. The Council never saw it coming. In the asteroid belt of Sol, what appeared to be inert mining platforms suddenly unfolded into warships, sleek, angular, and bristling with weapons far beyond what the Council believed humans capable of building. Hidden for years under layers of camouflage, these fleets were christened not with names of conquest, but survival, resolve, defiance, retribution. The first strikes were surgical. Human Black Ops units disabled Council communication relays, plunging entire sectors into chaos. Patrol fleets sent to suppress uprisings found themselves ambushed, their ships torn apart by weapons designed not for intimidation, but for efficiency. The Council's doctrine, built on centuries of predictable wars, crumbled before human unpredictability. But it wasn't just weapons. It was will. Council species had grown complacent, dulled by bureaucracy and ritual. Humanity was raw, furious, and unwilling to yield. Where alien soldiers retreated when outnumbered, humans dug in and fought to the last bullet. Where fleets might normally surrender when surrounded, human captains rammed their ships into enemy flagships, detonating cores and blinding martyrdom. Every act of defiance carried a message. We will not kneel. We will not stop. The first decisive victory came in the Veil Nebula. A Council armada of 50 ships moved to blockade a cluster of human colonies. As their commander broadcast demands for surrender, his ships began exploding one after another. Human stealth corvettes, tiny, fast, invisible against the nebula's backdrop, had slipped inside the formation. By the time the armada realized what was happening, half their fleet was gone. The rest fled, shattering the illusion of Council invincibility. News spread faster than light. For the first time, aliens across the galaxy saw humans not as victims, but as warriors. Entire populations tuned into hijacked Council broadcasts where humans declared, "We never sought war, but you brought it to our homes. Now we bring it back to yours." The Council's chambers descended into panic. Accusations flew between alien factions. Some argued for immediate annihilation of Earth, others for negotiation. A few, species long resentful of the Council's iron grip, began to secretly root for humanity. If humans could stand against the Council, perhaps others could too. And still, the fighting escalated. Council fleets, designed for intimidation and slow sieges, found themselves outmaneuvered. Humans had learned war the hard way, through centuries of brutal conflict with ourselves. We did not fight cleanly, predictably, or politely. We struck supply lines, crippled logistics, and shattered morale. We weaponized everything: asteroids, AI-driven swarms, even hacked enemy drones turned back on their masters. The Council had betrayed us, thinking we were too young, too naive, too desperate for their approval to resist. But betrayal has a way of clarifying priorities. Now, every human, soldier, colonist, refugee, knew the truth. The Council would never give us equality. Respect would never be granted. It had to be taken. And so the order spread again, not through hidden channels this time, but shouted across battlefields, painted on hulls of ships, carved into ruined walls on liberated colonies. Unleash. The galaxy had thought humanity was tamed. Now, they would learn what happens when the leash snaps. The galaxy had never seen a war like this. For millennia, the Council had waged conflict of attrition, slow, grinding struggles resolved through negotiation and ritualized surrenders. But the humans, we fought like a wildfire, moving faster than doctrine allowed, striking harder than simulations predicted. And unlike the Council's fleets, we carried something far more dangerous than superior weapons: conviction. World after world erupted. Some colonies rose up on their own, inspired by the victories at Arivos and the Veil Nebula. Others were liberated by human fleets that struck like phantoms from hidden space. Everywhere, the Council tried to enforce its authority, but everywhere it found defiance. Even alien species that had once looked down on us began to hesitate. The Kareth, a proud reptilian race, quietly stopped sending soldiers to Council campaigns. The fragile-winged Solari began leaking intelligence to human resistance cells. They did not do it out of love for humanity, but because, for the first time, they saw the possibility of a galaxy where the Council was not absolute. And so the cracks spread. Still, the Council did not relent. Desperation made them ruthless. They turned entire continents into ash fields, hoping to terrify humanity into submission. They deployed weapons outlawed even by their own decrees: nanite plagues, gravitic bombs, planetary blockades. Millions of humans died in agony. But with every death, our fury sharpened. We were not fighting for conquest. We were not fighting for glory. We were fighting because we had been betrayed, because children had been starved, because miners had been massacred, because entire colonies had been stripped of dignity and freedom. Humanity did not crave domination. We demanded only this: that no one would ever dare put chains on us again. And that demand gave us strength the Council could not match. The final blow came not in the skies of Earth or the halls of the Council, but in the shattered belt, a region of space long considered uninhabitable. The Council, believing no one could survive there, used it as a weapons testing ground. What they did not know was that humanity had made the belt our forge. Hidden shipyards carved into asteroids, entire fleets built in silence, experimental weapons tested in the shadows. When the Council's Grand Fleet, 300 ships strong, entered the belt to finish the human problem once and for all, they found not a broken species, but a storm waiting to break. Human warships surged from the rocks like ghosts, striking with impossible precision. The Council's mighty armada shattered in days. By the end of the battle, the belt belonged not to the galaxy, but to humanity. The Council never recovered. Their fleets were in ruins, their authority fractured, their allies disillusioned. Some races openly defected. Others withdrew into neutrality. The once mighty Galactic Council collapsed under the weight of its own arrogance, and humanity stood victorious. But our victory was not the conquest they had feared. We did not raise banners of empire over alien worlds. We did not enslave or annihilate those who had stood against us. Instead, we sent a single message across every channel, every frequency, every language the galaxy could understand. We are human. We will not bow. Betray us once, and we will fight until the stars themselves burn out. But if you seek peace, true peace, then you will find no stronger ally than us. Silence followed. And then, slowly, cautiously, alien voices answered. Not in the chambers of the council, which now lay abandoned, but in the meeting halls of free worlds, in the transmissions of liberated colonies. The galaxy was changing, not because humanity demanded it, but because we had proven that it could change. The council had betrayed us. They had tried to shackle us. They had tried to erase us. But in their arrogance, they had given us the very thing they feared most, unity. We were not scattered colonies, not bickering nations, not desperate petitioners begging for recognition. We were one species, forged in betrayal, hardened by fire, and bound together by a single word that had become our rallying cry. HFY. Humanity. Fuck yeah. The council had tried to erase us from history. Instead, they had ensured our place at the center of it. And so, as the fires of war cooled and the galaxy looked upon us with wary respect, humanity answered betrayal not with submission, but with the only answer we had ever truly known. To rise. To fight. To endure. Because we are human. And that is enough.